Well, our next guest speaker needs no introduction. Dr. Gaetano Cavalieri, president of CIBJO, the World Jewellery Confederation, that took office 25 years ago and changed it completely. The paradigm of what CIBJO is all about. Ladies and gentlemen, a big warm applause for Dr. Gaetano Cavalieri, please. The stage is yours. Thank you, Gaetano.
Thank you very much, Rui. Ladies and gentlemen, it is both a pleasure and a privilege to be with you here in Brazil, fascinating and exciting country. It was 10 years ago almost to the day that CIBJO held its 2015 annual Congress in the city of Salvador in the state of Bahia. Then we all experienced the type of energy and sense of excitement that we do today. I would like to acknowledge, as has been today, the great effort that IBGM did at the time and is doing in the tradition of the Brazilian hospitality. And I would like also to acknowledge Eccleton Santini, who is here, Karina Sena, that was our organizer in Salvador, Rosalie, of course, and Clarissa, and Carla Pineiro at the time. We truly enjoyed so very much. CIBJO relationship with ICA, and I want again to acknowledge my good friend Damian Cody, as well the CEO Doug Hacker. But I want also to take the opportunity to say something that is very close to my heart to one of my very best friends, Andrew Cody, who was president of ICA, that still is here, present in spirit. Just last November, Damien was with us, guest in Shanghai at 2024 Congress of CIBJO. There, he introduced our delegate to ICA's GEMS Keep Giving charity and gave example of its work, such as delivering clean water to the Savarite mining community in Kamtonga, Kenya. These types of projects will feature strong in my address today. The title of my presentation is The Evolution of Responsible Sourcing Practices in the Jewelry Industry. And in it, I plan to paint a broad canvas, which in many respects reflects the year that I have been president of CIBJO. As will become apparent, my area of perspective is the entire length and breadth of the greater jewelry industry, in which all the components part are interconnected, both being influenced and having an influence on each other. It will relate, of course, to color stones, but also diamonds, pearls, corals, precious metal, and finished jewelry. If you will permit me, I would like to begin my address today with a personal story. In 2001, shortly after being elected president of CIBJO for the first time, I participated in a conference in New York where I and my colleagues came under blistering attack from a number of human rights groups. As you may remember, the conflict diamond crisis was at its peak at the time, with rebels groups which were fighting against governments in countries like Sierra Leone and Angola, taking control of diamond fields. They were committing atrocities against local population and using the proceeds of the uncut stones they were selling to finance their military campaign. We essentially were being accused of complicity in these crimes. What my critics were not aware of, or possibly they choose to ignore, is that the forum known as the Kimberley process had already been established 1 year earlier, and for months representatives of governments, civil society, and the diamond and jewelry industry had been holding discussion about an international certification system, which, if successful, could end the trade in conflict diamonds. As we are now aware, the system known as Kimberley Process Certification Scheme was launched in 2003, and within just several years saw the incidence of conflict diamonds in the pipeline fall from more than 4% to less than 0.2%. It is believed that this drying up of funds for rebels group contributes significantly to the ending of civil wars in a number of African countries. But that experience of being attacked by civil society in New York in 2001 convinced me that our industry needs a voice in the very forum where human rights, ethical business principles, and sustainable development were being discussed. The correct address for that was the United Nations Economic and Social Council, or ECOSOC, which 1 year earlier had assumed the task of pursuing the Millennium Development Goals, which had been declared in 2000 by the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. So just several months later, and again in July 2002, I traveled to New York and knocked at the door of the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, or DESA. My goal was that CIBJO, as the most representative body in the world jewelry industry, would come to be recognized as an NGO within ECOSOC, just like other NGOs that accused me of complicity in the conflict diamond crisis. Both in 2001 and 2002, when I arrived at the United Nations, I was looked at in the same way as one may look at an alien who is just landed from Mars. What would the representative of luxury industry handling expensive and non-essential products sold to the top few % of humanity be doing in a forum concerned predominantly with social justice and sustainable development in the developing world? I was asked, and then soon shown the door. Then in 2003, a friend of mine, the ambassador Marcello Spatafora, was appointed as a permanent representative of Italy to the United Nations. And that July, he arranged for me a formal meeting at DESA, where I was received still with degree of suspicion, but at least this time they were ready to hear what I had to say. 3 years later, and here I'm cutting a very long story short, CIBJO received special consultative status in ECOSOC, becoming the first and only jewelry industry organization to achieve that position. And over the 19 years, that have followed, we have come to be recognized as one of the agency most active and effective NGOs running joint projects with various United Nations bodies and among a handful of associations invited on a regular basis to address the ECOSOC eye-level segment both in New York and Geneva. Let me add at this point that due to the very, very close relation between CIBJO and ICA, that as you may remember, was born because different opinion within CIBJO at the time, but our relation is very close. In my role of leader of the jewelry industry pipeline, ICA, the Colorstone gemstones, the entire pipeline of the industry within the Colorstone gemstones is represented into the United Nations, and I am honored to represent ICA and the Colorstone friends into that forum. But the act of associating ourselves with ECOSOC, the Millennium Development Goals, and since 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals, meant a great deal more than just responding to criticism from human rights groups. When in 2006, CIBJO accepted special consultative status in ECOSOC, we essentially committed the international jewelry industry, from the mine to retail jeweler, to work towards the fulfillment of the United Nations Development Agenda. Until then, systems like Kimberley Process had been seen as defensive, designed to ensure that we do not impact negatively on humanity or the environment. What we declared in 2006 was that corporate social responsibility needed to do more than that. We had to be able to leverage our businesses so as to bring about positive change, economic, social, and environmental, for all stakeholders and not only those at the top of the pyramid. For the jewelry sector, the commitment to playing a proactive and positive societal role all the way through the chain of distribution represent a massive undertaking. With the exception of a handful of companies, mainly Diamond Mining Corporation and several large jewelry retail chains, the overwhelming majority of the business are small or medium-sized enterprises. Even Italy, which is one of the most important jewelry centers in the world, does not have a single jewelry company that would objectively qualify as large. International corporations, certainly not in terms of employees. However, while very few companies have a middle geographic reach, particularly vertically through the chain of distribution, we are among the most international of businesses. Practically, very single item of jewelry that is produced comprise a variety of components, metal and gems, each of which is likely to have been mined in one place and processed and treated in others. What this means in real terms is even relatively simple. Jewelry item in a store represent the work and the integrity of hundreds and sometimes thousands of people living in multiple countries. And while it is true that in our primary markets in the developing world where we sell our jewelry, they are non-essential items. Our industry is most definitely essential in many places where jewelers' components are mined and processed. Indeed, a good number of those countries are very significantly reliant on the revenues generated by precious metal, diamond, colored gemstones, pearls, and precious corals. Let me provide a concrete example, and it's possibly the most illustrative instance of a jewelry industry component transforming the life of a nation. In 1966, the year that Republic of Botswana obtained full independence from Britain, the Southern African country, which has land much larger than that of Spain, had only 12 kilometers of paved roads. In the entire nation, there were an estimated 40 universities, graduates, and about 100 high school graduates. There was only one doctor every 47,652 people. But the same year Botswana became independent, a De Beers prospecting team discovered the first diamond-rich kimberlite pipe in the country, and 1 year later, massive diamond deposits were discovered at Orapa, which would be developed into a major mine, and that would be followed by a discovery of Little Kane, and then Juaneng, sorry for my pronunciation, but unfortunately my voice is not as usual, being traveling over here from Shanghai and got a gold under top air conditioning, so I apologize, which was into the world's richest diamond mine by value to this very day. In fewer than 6 decades, Botswana was transformed into an upper middle income country with a GDP per capita of more than $18,300, the 6th highest in Africa. It ranks at the top of the Human Development Index in sub-Saharan Africa and the lowest corruption ranking in the continent. Botswana today has a road network of about 32,000 kilometers, of which 20,000 kilometers are paved, including 134 kilometers of highways. Adult literacy is close to 90%, among the highest rates in Africa, and some 87% of school-aged children are enrolled in an educational framework. The country is home to 7 institutions of higher learning, which the largest, the University of Botswana, has about 15,500 students. Let me stop 1 second, because I can see some surprise in the expression of some of you, wondering what all these things has to do with color stones, what all these things is doing with gemstones, what these things are doing with our industry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind myself and all of us that in 2007, the gentleman was there, a number of you were there, in Cape Town during a CIBJO Congress in there, where the top political representative, not only from South Africa, but also from all around the South African area, let's say the sub-Saharan area countries were there. Mr. Nicky Oppenheimer himself was there. The Deputy President of South African Republic and a number of ministers. We declared that the jewelry industry, including the color stone, is a peace asset. That declaration was presented to the United Nations Economic and Social Council. The Secretary General took that declaration to the General Assembly and was done a resolution from the General Assembly recognizing that all of us collectively are a peace asset. Why? Because we are giving to the people possibility to live, to have a better life condition, to work, to eat, to have medical assistance, to have school, to let their children grow and flourish. This is what we represent. We have heard about sustainability and other things, but sustainability is a wonderful word. But then you have to do things. And how you do? Letting the people grow and flourish in their own countries. No need, as we can see all over the world, people suffering and be killed for whatever reason. I don't go into political issue because it's not belonging to me. But certainly we are in a world that is not difficult to say that this world in this moment is upside down, and why the jewelry industry, the colorstone industry, all together, we may participate to the benefit of humanity with what we do, continue doing what we do, in the way we do, each one of us in their segments of interest. Let me go forward. I apologize with the translator that are doing a great job, by the way. So the discovery of massive diamond resources just months after achieving independence, and then the partnership that developed between the Botswana government and De Beers were in many respects the most important factor that set the nations apart from most other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, turning into the poster child for diamond development. Today, while the diamond industry provides only 4% of direct employment, it accounts for about 30% of the country's GDP and 85% of export income. The government of Botswana is today the second largest shareholders in De Beers, after Anglo-American Corporation, and in 2013, De Beers' entire sales headquarters, which for more than a century had been located in London, moved to Botswana, in the capital city of Gaborone. That move had been ordained through a 2011 agreement, which also provides for an independent sale outlet in Botswana. To manage the sale of this supply and parastatal, Okavango Diamond Company, or ODC, was set up in Gaborone in 2012. ODC kicked off operation with a 12% allocation from Botswana production and start receiving 50% in 2016, and in 2020 its allocation was increased to 25%. This was increased far further in July 2023 when De Beers and the Botswana government reached an agreement in principles or renewing their rough diamond sales agreement for another 10 years through 2033. As a part of the agreement, the share of Botswana supply sold to ODC would be increased immediately to 30% of run of mine production, and that share would grow progressively to 50% by the final year of the contract. Botswana is almost certainly the prominent example of gemstone resources transforming the national heritage, but is hardly the only instance. In neighboring Namibia, whereas the Namibian mining sectors is total accounts of 10%, of the country's gross national product, diamonds by themselves make up between 7 and 8%. Considering the tax levies, royalties, and dividends that the Namibian government derives from its diamond resources, for every dollar generated from diamonds in the country, approximately 80% ends up in the state coffers. Diamond mining also plays a critical role in the economies of Angola, Sierra Leone, Democratic Republic of Congo, the Russian Autonomous Zone of Yakutia, and to a lesser degree in Zimbabwe and South Africa. It does not make a dent of GDP of a developed nation like Canada, which is currently the world's third largest diamond producing country by volume and value after Russia and Botswana. But it certainly does in Canada, Northwest Territories, the icy and largely undeveloped region where most of the mines are located, according to information published in 2023 by Government of Northwest Territories. Between 1996 and 2022, diamond mining created 33,613 person-years of employment, with 16,769 person-years going to indigenous people. Also during the same year period, indigenous business in the territory obtained more than 8 billion Canadian dollars in procurement contracts. Since 2015, indigenous governments have collected more than 48 million Canadian dollars through resources revenue sharing agreements. The percentage of employment of members indigenous communities on average represent approximately between 20% and 30% of the workforce. It is higher than in other sectors, in retail and tourism, for example. Indigenous employment in the North and West Territories ranges between 5% and 15%. Before I go to the next slide, why all of this? Because this shows once more and again that regardless what kind of components we are talking about, and obviously I'm referring in this case to the colored gemstones. I mean, I can see my good friend Guillermo, and I may remember also the efforts he did and we all together did in his wonderful country. And I can never forget visiting the mines. The emerald mines was truly a pleasure to see how Colombia at the time was changing from one extreme situation to a positive extreme situation, which I hope now is going forward. And obviously, be ourselves, CIBJO, counterpart or partner of government, we are happy to support as well here in Brazil. I think this was, yeah. Given the fragmented nature of each sector of the industry and the fact that upwards of 80% of mining is artisanal, the exact contribution of colored gemstones mining to national economies is more difficult to quantify. However, it is substantial as well. Zambia, where the emerald sector dominates, sees colored gemstones mining contributing about $80 million annually to GDP. Export statistics shows that emeralds accounts for a significant portion of the country's mineral export, with around $25 million in annual revenue. The industry provides employment for thousands, which estimates suggesting around 20,000 direct and indirect jobs in the mining and related sector. Mozambique, where rubies and garnet mining dominates, has of late been suffering from an insurgent conflict, which certainly has impacted on the colored gemstone sectors. But its gems mining industry is a crucial part of the economy, contributing roughly $150 million to GDP. Export of rubies have exceeded $50 million annually. The sectors provide employment opportunities for many local, with tens of thousands of jobs linked to mining and processing. Gemfield, which is one of your sponsors, the world's largest gemstone miner, plays a crucial role in both Zambia and Mozambique economies. In Zambia, for instance, it has been instrumental in creating thousands of jobs, not just in mining, but also in ancillary services like transportation and retail. This job creation has a ripple effect, boosting local economies and providing livelihood for many families. In Mozambique, Gemfield has focused on community development, including education and healthcare. The company invests in local infrastructures. For example, it has supported schools and health clinics, ensuring the local residents have access to essential services. These investments helps to foster a more educated and healthier workforce, which is vital for long-term economic growth. There are also notable examples of colored gemstones mining contribution to several Latin America economies. Colombia, the sector is estimated to contribute around 9 million to GDP, with emeralds export bringing up to 40 million yearly. The industry support around 30,000 jobs, contributing to both local economies and livelihood of many families. Here in Brazil, which produce a variety of gems, the colored gemstones industry contribute approximately 200 million of the nation's GDP. The industry also employs thousands, with estimates of around 50,000 people working in mining gemstones-related business. Let me pay tribute to some other mining companies and friends that are here in the room, and I'm referring to Fura Gems, my Italian fellow seated over there, and with Gianluca Maina, and obviously my good friend Marcelo and Belmont Emeralds Group mine, here present. Marcelo, thank you very much for offering us to be here today with all our Brazilian friends. But can we consider the mining diamond-colored gemstones and precious metal like gold, silver, and platinum as sustainable? After all, once they are removed from the heart, they do not return. For minerals, we have defined sustainability as the generation of sustainable grassroots economic and social opportunities in the countries and region which they are located. And here we refer to opportunities both in the mineral extraction and the jewelry industries, and also other economic sectors which are secondary beneficiaries of the investments made in the revenues generated by precious gems and minerals. According to the CIBJO Blue List, which you can see here in this slide, which is a lexicon produced within CIBJO of agreed to words and terms related to responsible jewelry supply chain, and which currently is the process of a public consultation. Sustainable in our industry refer to generally accepted elements of social, economic, and environmental behavior, all underpinned by strong governance mechanisms. To be regarded as sustainable, a business must demonstrably meet international baseline standards and delivering enduring socioeconomic benefit and environment protection that meets the needs of future generation. Let me stop 1 second, future generation. I can see here gems for generations. Gems for generation, future generations. The young generation that are following us, and I refer to me, I am the 7th generation out of 8. My son is the 8th generation. My family business was founded 1821. Despite our university degrees and professional activities, but still, this is an industry to love. This is an industry to love passionately. This is a passionate industry, and especially in the Colorstone, you all are doing a great job. I may remember, and this is something that I want to say just as part of my personal attraction to Colorstone, that years ago I took from a very close friend of mine in Bangkok a wonderful blue sapphire, 8-carat 18 emerald cut. Fantastic. That I gave as a present to my wife, but I made the mistake to say, give me the stone, let me show. I said, why do you need? We have so many things. I was so upset, I gave back. But 2 years later, I took the stone, which supposedly was already sold. And I said, now you mount, you bring it to me at the next Congress, I will give to my wife as 33rd wedding anniversary. This year we are going to celebrate 51 anniversary. She's very patient, by the way. She's very patient. Sarah knows, Sarah Yud, CEO of JVC, knows very well how patient is my wife. By the way, well, I lost where we were. Yes, I found it. So the public consultation of the blue list, and I invite all of you to participate if you wish, will last through the early part of September so that the approved version can be presented at 2025 CIBJO Congress, which will take place in Paris between October 27 and 29. I would be delighted if each one of you participate in the review, which can do by registering via the CIBJO website. And needless to say, that you are all invited to attend the Congress in Paris, but let me also add, you are warmly invited by the President of CIBJO himself to be present at the 100-year CIBJO celebration in Vicenza, September 2026. I will ask the list of all the people, and I will check if each one of you is there. Those that will be not there, I will send Sicilian ambassadors at home. So we do need to draw a distinction between industrialized mining operation and small-scale and artisanal mining. Larger mining companies typically have massive social development programs and are subject to stringent environmental regulations, which are part and parcel of their modus operandi. The same is not true for artisanal mining, and which often is carried out by individuals or 2-3-person operation using the most basic equipment with health and safety often not being primary concerns. These are the miners whose security is most likely to be threatened, and who often do not properly understand the value of what they have extracted, meaning that they are frequently exploited by the traders who buy their goods. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a big responsibility towards the artisanal miners and those that are doing that kind of job, which is incredible in every single sense, but we have to exercise our responsibility and be responsible, let me say, more responsible than what we supposed to be in order to take care of their labor conditions. According to the World Bank, artisanal and small-scale mining occurs in approximately 80 countries worldwide, and there are about 100 million artisanal miners globally in all mining sectors and not only precious minerals, with up to 1 billion dependents. Artisanal and small-scale production account for 20% of gold mining and up to 20% of diamond mining in terms of volume, although less than 5% in terms of value. In the colored gemstones industry, more than 80% of rough production is from small-scale or artisanal mining sources. There is taking place an essential shift in thinking where artisanal and small-scale mining is changing from being considered a challenge to being more of an opportunity. Defensive measures in which the industry has played a key role, like the Kimberley process or the Code of Responsible Mining initiative, have helped reduce the level of violence in regions where artisanal mining is taking place, although there is a good deal that still needs to be done, particularly in terms of systematic violence. But in addition to that, the industry is getting involved at the grassroots level to help equip and educate the artisanal mining communities, providing them legal access for their merchandise into the marketplace and supplying them with knowledge to ensure that they are being paid fairly for what they produce. Groups in the Great Lakes region of Africa are hard at work helping formalize artisanal gold mining activity and industry-led projects in the colored gemstone sectors. They are running in countries like Brazil, Colombia, Madagascar, and Sri Lanka. One notable program is a project called Gem Fair, which is being carried out with artisanal diamond miners in Sierra Leone. Sponsored and created by De Beers, it involved providing dedicated hardware to artisanal miners, which include an electronic scale and tablet computer. This enabled the miners to wait and then record the diamonds they extract, as well as pinpoint the exact location of which all these take place. The miners can then get accurate information about the market value of the stones, and they are provided the opportunity to sell it to a recognized dealer, thereby qualifying for legitimate access of their merchandise into the chain of distribution. De Beers plans on expanding this program into other countries, and systems that have been developed could be applied conceivably into other gemstone sectors. There are also parts of the jewelry business where not only economic activity is sustainable, but so is the product, environmentally, as well as socially and economically. This most often involve biogenic material in a marine environment where sustainability is made possible through aquafarming, such as with cultured pearls or controlled harvesting, as with precious coral. Unlike a mine, which has a finite lifespan, a pearl farm can continue producing indefinitely on condition that it is responsibly operated. In other words, it is an asset that can be regenerated and sustained, and in turn act as a resource for sustainable economic and social opportunity. Environment sustainability and economic sustainability are closely linked. In regions where the pearl farming communities share only a minimal proportion of the revenues generated, they are not incentivized to invest in maintaining a decent marine environment. Instead, in order to subsist, they are pushed to maximize production by reducing the generation period of the oyster. The result is lower quality pearls, deteriorating environmental condition and the business that is not downward spiral, increasingly unable to contribute to the needs of the farmers and communities in which they live. Why is this so? A healthy oyster has the ability to consecutively produce 3 high-quality cultured pearls over its productive lifespan, on condition that it is provided a clean marine environment in which to live and proper time between grafting and harvesting for the pearls to form. If the pearl farm does not cut corners, in other words, it does not compromise or maintaining a pristine marine environment, and it harvests the pearl at the right time, then the chances of producing a quality product are optimized. A well-run pearl farm is an ecological asset serving as rich food source for fish species and offsetting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Several years ago, I was involved in a consulting project in French Polynesia, which has, over the years, seen a very significant erosion in the average quality and value of Tahitian pearls coming to market. Our advice to the government at the time was to create a pearl growers cooperative which would provide a direct shares of profit to the indigenous pearl farmers living on the remote island and atolls in the South Pacific where pearls farming takes place. We insisted that these indigenous farmers receive a greater share in the trade farther down the chain of distribution, which traditionally has been controlled by mainly European middlemen. By turning the farmers into partners, we believe they would become more inclined to follow the strict environmental guidelines that would provide a better product. But it was a project that, at least in the short term, did not end well. We ran into tremendous opposition from pearl wholesalers, who also helped finance an election campaign that saw the governments we were talking to being pushed out of office. But the model that we proposed had since been adopted elsewhere in South Pacific, and it is already contributing to the creation of more sustainable pearl business. Precious coral is another biogenic product. It is not farmed, at least not at present, but rather is harvested from deep below the ocean surface. Sustainability is maintained mainly by ensuring that production level remain below the ability of the corals that grow and regenerate on their own. I should point out that precious coral differs from the common corals that many of you are familiar with. The latter are found in shallow waters in areas like Australia Great Barrier Reef, and they currently are being devastated by bleaching brought on by climate change. In contrast, because of the depth at which the precious varieties grow, they are not affected by warming and acidification of oceans, waters, and consequently are not considered threatened by CITES, the International Conservation Authority. But even though their own products is not under existential risk, precious coral professionals tend to be passionate about all corals and feel committed to use their influence to defend the common corals reef as well. CIBJO's Coral Commission has been helping coordinate research being conducted at scientific institutes around the world which already are eliciting promising results that could lead the regrowth and repopulation of common corals affected by global warming. Sustainability in luxury products like jewelry will not be achieved through a single undertaking, but rather through a multiple of acts by people and companies working together or individually. At the same time, there has, over the past several years, been a strong move toward the adoption of uniform standard of practices so as that to optimize conditions which sustainable activities can take place. These include the creation of strict code of practice against which companies can be audited and certified. There have also been efforts to demand traceable chain of custody, some using new technologies like blockchain, but this in the jewelry sector is still very difficult. In principle, there are positive developments, but they are raised some very tough challenge for an industry that is made up predominantly by small and medium-sized enterprises. Small companies with limited human and financial resources often struggle to meet the demands of compliance organizations and many family-owned firms which are ethical and often have been in the business for generations, find themselves being pushed aside by clients simply because they are not certified as compliant. CIBJO has been working hard to provide solutions, and particularly in the more fragile sector in the jewelry business, like colored gemstones, where almost all firms qualify as SMEs, even the mining companies. For many years, the rules and standards were devised in CIBJO were mainly concerned with development language and technical benchmark to protect the physical integrity of the product. In other words, we looked at how one quantifies relatively quality and how we should identify and describe our products in a clinical and impartial way. But increasingly, over the past 20 years, we have also concentrated on the way in which we do business and how that impacts the societies in which economies in which we operate are part. We talk today about responsible sourcing, about sustainability, and about the jewelry industry role in the greater society. In 2019, the CIBJO Board of Directors approved the Responsible Sourcing Blue Book, developed over the course of the previous 2 years, and it was subject both internal and external review. It was a departure from the norm of CIBJO, which had originally developed its Blue Book system to provide sets of harmonized standard and nomenclature for product categories such as diamond, colored gemstones, pearl, precious metals, and precious coral. The responsible sourcing book differed in that it dealt with standards of practice that could be applied throughout the jewelry sector. It looked mainly at the people involved in the industry and the way they behave rather than the product itself. The Responsible Sourcing Blue Book is a guidance document and not a certifiable standard like Responsible Jewelry Council Code of Practices. But its introduction represents a watershed moment for the jewelry industry because of the first time universal benchmarked standard of practice were supplied to guide companies in ensuring the integrity of their practices and supply chain. The Responsible Sourcing Blue Book was largely modeled on the OECD due diligence guidance for responsible supply chain of minerals from conflict-affected and high-risk areas. That document, which dates back 11 years, already has been revised in several editions, was rooted in the after effect, the global recession of 2008, which ironically was instigated by the bursting of a housing bubble in the United States, the world's most developed economy. To prevent a recurrence of financial disaster legislation was formulated in various countries that prevent financial institutions from unilaterally taking the types of risk that led to the crisis. The most prominent of the laws passed during this period was the Dodd-Frank Act, which was approved by the US Congress in June 2010. But Dodd-Frank Act had an addition which was tacked on it with almost no discussion. Almost at the last moment, known Section 1508, it enacted a supply chain reporting requirement on publicly traded companies that bought gold as well as 3 other minerals used mainly in electronics, tin, tungsten, and tantalum from the DRC and its neighbor countries in the Great Lake region of Africa. As a result of many from industry simply selected to stop buying gold from suppliers in the Great Lake region. They did this to avoid regulatory requirement in the law, but then social and economic impact communities in the Great Lakes region, but were dependent on gold mining and their daily bread was overwhelming. I can understand we are running over time, so with all the due respect for the translator and all of you, I think that I'm going to the conclusion, and I don't finish my written speech, but I want to express one. I got this, the OECD state frameworks, our ESG's wheel that I invite you to check in our website, and again, on the kind of lifestyle that we are going to do to help the population less fortunate than us. And then before I go to the last slide, which is thank you, I would like to express my deep satisfaction, and despite my long journey from China to Brazil via Europe and then back, from time to time, my wife would like to see me home, but only from time to time. Ladies and gentlemen, I am truly happy to be here. I am truly happy to be here with all of you. And I want to thank personally the President, Mr. Cody, and the CEO, Mr. Aka, for pushing me to come over here because somebody was reminding me that I said, and I have said several times, that this industry is a big family. Sometimes we may agree, sometimes we may disagree, but we have no other choice than living together, especially in a world where only nearly 60 wars are going on around the world, only 60 wars. Nothing dramatic, only a few million people dying, and only a million of lives are gone. But we have to continue, we must continue to contribute to the well-being of the people working in this industry, and we must continue to contribute to the joy of the people that is buying our products. Thank you very much.
Gaetano, please stay on stage.